welcome to the video on rounding to the correct number of decimal places. This is the skill that you need when after performing an addition or subtraction, and you're trying to round them to the correct number of sig figs. The correct number of sig figs in the case of addition and subtraction is the least number of decimal places. We've already reviewed how to count the number of decimal places. So you would look at the values that you added or subtracted and figure out from those values which one has the least number of decimal places. And then you want to report your answer to that number of decimal places, whatever is the least number, right? So once you've done that, now you need to figure out, well, how do you round it to that number of decimal places? So for rounding to the correct number of decimal places, remember that when we say decimal places, we're talking about all the numbers to the right of the decimal, whether they're zeros or not, and that's how you're going to figure out where your cutoff is going to be. So in this first example here, 33.572, we want it to be to one decimal place, so this is one decimal place right here. That means my cutoff line is right here, between the 5 and the 7. And then remember, you always look to the number directly right of that cutoff line, and that will tell you whether you keep it at 5 or you round it up. So in this case, we're going to round it up because that number is a 7, so any number 5 or higher, we would round up. So this will be 33.6. All right, what about this number here, where you're rounding it to 2 decimal places? Notice you have a bunch of zeros here, so does that matter? Nope. When it comes to decimal places, you're going to include the zeros as well. So 1, 2, those are 1, 2. So my cutoff line will be between the middle and the last 0. And then I would just report this as 33.00. Three decimal places. Okay, what if you have a number like this? You got 0.000987. Once again, doesn't matter how many zeros you have after the decimal place. We're going to count them. Because remember, once you have a decimal place in your value, the zeros after that decimal place are significant, so they have to count. So in this case, we'll count 1, 2, 3. Boom, there's my cutoff. I look to the right of the cutoff. I see there's a 9 there, so I'm rounding that last 0 up to 1. So I get 0.001. Okay, so before I move on to the next one, what if this was asking me to do it to 2 decimal places? Actually, that is the next one. Haha. Okay, so it's asking me to do it to 2 decimal places. It's the same process each time. I start counting the numbers to the right of the decimal. 1, 2. I'm going to do that. And then you may be like, oh, wait a second. Isn't that just 0? You're right. But in math, this 0.00, is equivalent to 0. So mathematically speaking, they are equivalent. But in terms of precision, this is a more precise value. So you're communicating to someone about the precision of this measurement or this calculation. So we are going to report it as is, 2 decimal places. That will be our answer. Even though mathematically this is equivalent to just 0, for precision purposes, you need to include those zeros to the right of the decimal place. Last one. What if we wanted to report a number like this to 0 decimal places? So whenever you're reporting it to 0 decimal places, how many numbers should you have to the right of the decimal? Nothing, right? So what we're going to do is whenever that's the case, your cutoff will be at the decimal, okay? And once again, you look to the right of that value, you see that there's a 7 there, so this will become 82. And you can report this as 82 or 82 point if for some reason it's important. Actually, these two are equivalent in terms of significant figures. This is 2 sig figs, that's 2 sig figs, so this doesn't matter. But let's say, for example, your number was right, that was your number and you want it to 0 decimal places. Once again, you would do, your cutoff would be here at the decimal, and then you could report it, as 80 or 80 point. So in terms of decimal places, these both have 0 decimal places. But if for some reason you needed to have 2 sig figs, you would use this value or you would use scientific notation. Okay. All right, I hope you found this video helpful in terms of reporting rounding things to certain decimal places. Have a quality day.